name is Bella. I'm 24 years old. I live in Sweden. And in October 2013, I'm going to Japan to study Japanese. And so I wanted to make a video answering some questions I usually get. And these are questions I've gotten from like people online and people in real life, and you know, my family, my friends, and strangers, you know, basically anyone. And I think the purpose is just if I can help someone out, then I want to do that. Like even if it's just one person who watches this and goes, oh well, now I know what to do, then you know that's good. So first of all, I'm going to ask the question of how I'm going to Japan, because I know there are a lot of ways, and depending on why you're going there and things like that. And I'm going there as a student, and I'm going with an agency called Go Nihon, which basically means Go to Japan, if I'm not completely mistaken. And I'm going with them, like I chose them over this another one, they're called Blueberry Languages, well, Blueberry Sport, but yeah, no Blueberry Languages. And why I chose Go Nihon over them was because I felt that their services were better, like they offer a lot more for a lot less, and like you don't have to pay anything until you send your application in, and basically you don't even have to pay then. It's fine if you don't want to pay until you've gotten accepted to the school, but then you can't pay through PayPal, and it will be a bit more expensive because you have to pay like the fees from your bank and from that bank. But it's like you don't have to pay if you really don't want to until you get accepted into school and you know for sure that you can go. And they help you with like all the paperwork and you know your visa application, and if you want to, like if you have to apply for funding, they help you with that, and they don't charge you, like I said, anything basically for these services. I mean, I've paid the application fee and visa fee, which was about 1,400 Swedish crowns, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a bit over 20,000 yen. Maybe it's about $150, something like that. I'm not entirely sure about where the currency is at with dollar and Swedish crowns, but somewhere around there, like 130 pounds maybe, if you want to go UK-ish. So yeah, somewhere around there, that's what I paid, and that's basically all I'm going to pay until I get my student funding. I have to pay like the application fee and stuff like that. Not the application fee, the actual school fees. And like, you know, obviously I have to pay for my flights and stuff like that, but you don't pay them anything. Like what I pay now, I pay directly to the school, you know, to their PayPal account, and I paid it when I sent in my application, only because then they look at it sooner, and I obviously want to know if I got in or not. So you know, I paid that, and now I don't have to pay anything else until I get student funding and all that, and I'm gonna pay the school fees. So yeah, that's, you know, I think that's really good, and they're really helpful, like I said, and they help you with everything that you need. Like I needed to attach a picture of myself for, you know, one of those really horrible kind of passport-like photos, you know, close up, just your face, neutral expression. Basically, I look horrible, as you do. And I wasn't allowed to have my piercings in. I had to cover up my tattoo because I have one on my chest. But yeah, that I had to attach one of those, which was for the visa. And then I needed a copy of my passport, which was also for the visa. And you were supposed to scan it, but I didn't have a scanner, so they said it's okay if I just took a picture of it with a really good digital camera. And then you have to attach your, like, you basically have to have finished high school, or your country's equivalent of high school, which here I guess you would call it upper secondary school or something. It's like you're 18 when you graduate. So yeah, that's what I had to, like, those, just kind of my grades from there to show that I'd passed and that I'd finished. Because that's just why they want that, is just because you have to obviously pay for this somehow, and you have to pay for rent and food and everything, utilities, you know. And and they kind of, if you haven't, in Sweden, if you haven't finished up a secondary school, you will not get funding, period. So either you have to have a paper showing that I finished school, meaning I can get funding, or I assume you have to prove that I'm filthy rich and I can pay for this, some other way. And it does cost a lot of money. I mean, I think I made a calculation that my student loans will have gone up by about 170,000 Swedish crowns, which is like, I don't know, $17,000, $18,000, somewhere around there, which is a lot of money, but it's worth it in my opinion, obviously. So yeah, that's basically what you need, and that's how I'm going to Japan. And then usually people ask me why I'm going to Japan. I think that's also like one of the most common questions that everyone's asked me, and it's hard to explain. I think first of all, it's like, obviously I want to learn Japanese, and what better way to do it than to go there and do it, it's just because I used to study English, and then I've lived in the UK for about 2 years all in all, and my English has gotten, it's not perfect, definitely not, I'm not going to pretend that it is, because it's so not, but it has gotten better since I moved there. When I lived there, it's like no one will understand me if I speak Swedish. I have to use English, even if it's not great or whatever. It's like you have to do it because they're not going to understand you otherwise. And it's kind of that way in Japan. Not a lot of people speak English, and when they do, it's not very good. So even if, they're really helpful there as far as I've come to understand. Like, even if I can't speak Japanese, they'll be happy to try and help me. But it's just, if you're surrounded by people and you're constantly in situations where you do need the language, you do learn faster, because you kind of have to, And it's also because you learn better when you're using it all the time, when it's not just, I think why in Sweden we usually have rather good English is because we're exposed to English all the time, not just in schools. When we started studying English when we were 9, but we're also exposed to it obviously because we have movies and television and songs and all that kind of stuff in English. They do dub like kids movies into Swedish, but that's all they dub. Like everything else is in English, or the original language. So that's definitely helped, and I think living in Japan and being exposed to it on a daily basis is going to help as well. I don't think it's going to be easy in any way, shape or form, and it's going to be different from any language I'm trying studying, but I think it becomes easier when you're there and you're exposed to it, rather than just sitting at home in your own country and you use it like you practice online, or you read in a book and then you have nowhere to practice it. Like you can sit at home and you can talk to yourself in Japanese, but you don't really get to use it out in your daily life. So yeah, that's basically, I want to learn Japanese, and that's why I'm going to Japan. But I want to learn Japanese because I've been exposed to the language, and to, it's like I started watching animes when I was like 7 or something. They weren't big in Sweden back then. Now manga and anime are like massive in Sweden, like they are in so many countries, but they weren't back when I was a kid. I used to watch Sailor Moon and Ginga and Nagaraboshigin, and that was all I could watch because there wasn't really anything else. I think when Pokemon came, it became a lot bigger. That's kind of when it started taking over Sweden. But before Pokemon came to Sweden, you really didn't get exposed much to anything Japanese. Like, it wasn't big as it is now. Like, you can go to the library, you can borrow mangas, they have like so many different ones. Back then you couldn't. There was just no way to read them in Sweden. So yeah, I think that's another reason, I was exposed to it, from those shows, and that's kind of how I got in touch with the whole thing. And then I've been fascinated with like the language, the culture, the religions, the history, the food, the music, everything basically I'm really fascinated by. So yeah, that's kind of where I want to go. This video is going to get so much longer than it's supposed to be, and I'll probably divide it into 2 parts. But yeah, that's why I want to go to Japan. And then someone asks you why you want to go, if you say I want to go to Japan to study, I think people are going to ask you why, because it is still, even if it's becoming more and more accepted to go there as a student or to work. I mean, a lot more people are doing it now than they did, 20 years ago, because it's easier sort of now and it's more accepted. Well, not accepted, but you get what I'm saying. It's more widely spread. Maybe something like that. But people are going to ask you why, and I think sometimes you can give a really long answer. Like I just did, or you can just say because I want to. I mean, I think people say you're not going to use the Japanese for anything. It's just, I think for me it feels like, because first of all my goal is to, after I'm done studying, my goal is to study Japanese for 2-3 years in Japan, and then my goal is to get a job, a full-time job, because I'm planning on getting a part-time job a lot early, maybe like after my first 6 months or so, as an English teacher. And I don't know if it's gonna happen, I don't know how hard it's gonna be. I know it's possible, but it's gonna be tough, and it's not gonna be easy, and it's gonna take time, and I'm gonna have to work hard. But that's kind of the plan right now. So why I want to learn Japanese is obviously because I want to live there. My goal, my dreams, my ambitions are to stay in Japan and live there for a long time, if not for the rest of my life. But even if you don't have that as a goal, even if you're like, I'm not sure what to do with it, I think you can still find a lot of uses for it. I mean, even if you come home to your own country after a year in Japan and you've learned some Japanese, you're not fluent, because it takes a lot more than a year to become fluent in a language. But even if you have a standard understanding of it, you can use it, you understand it, it's you're fine with it. I think if you apply for a job in your own country which has nothing to do with Japanese, even then I think if it's like a business job or something like that, it might look really good that you've learned a language that's deemed to be like one of the most difficult languages in the world. It just might look good like on your application, or might make you stand out from the other people, which is always a good thing. I'm not saying it's gonna make you like, oh my god, everyone's gonna want to hire you, but it could actually look good when you apply for a job. And it's also like, if you, I mean, let's face it, Japanese is a really hard language. It's not like the hardest, and it's not as hard as a lot of people make it out to be, because so many people have told me that you're never gonna be able to learn it because it's like the hardest language in the world, and like no one ever manages to learn it, and it's like those who do, they suck at it. And I think that's just bullshit, to be completely honest. It's hard, it's a language, it's unlike your own language. If like your first language is Swedish or English, it's completely unlike everything so it's going to be hard. I think you'd be stupid if you decided, I'm going to go to Japan and learn Japanese because it's so easy, because it's not. But it's not like, you don't have to be an extreme genius to learn it, and you don't have to be like, oh, I have to study at least 20 hours a day for 16 years to be able to get it. Like, it's hard, but it's not going to be near impossible like a lot of people will want to tell you. But if you do get a grasp on it, like if you go abroad for a year and you get a grasp on the language and you've learned like all the basics of it and you can use it, and then you come home, I think that alone should be like a massive booster. Even if you don't use it when you go home, or even if you don't even if the company you want to work for wouldn't be impressed by you having it, it might give you like a boost in your confidence, feeling like there's nothing I can't learn now. I managed to grasp Japanese. Dude, I can do anything. I think it will definitely make you feel kind of confident. Like, that's what I assume I might feel in a year or so. So yeah, I think if you want to do it, you should do it. And I think it's really good if you have a why, because it's going to cost you a lot of money. Like, it's going to cost you nominally, basically. So it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to be tough. You're going to struggle, I think, in the first few months, like maybe a month and a half or two. When you get there, you're probably going to think, what have I done? I should never have done this. I'm going to go home. Because that is so common. I've only gone to England, to work. And the first month or two there was like, I mean, it was fun, but it was still like, oh my god, what have I done? I should go home. So I think that's kind of something you have to expect. It's going to be tough, but if you do it, and if you find that it's worth it, I think even if you don't have like a massive list of reasons why you want to do it, you should, then you just go and do it. Life is short. Just, I don't think you need to have like this massive plan about how to use the language in order to feel justified to go there and study. Even if your answer is as short as, I just want to go, I just want to do it, then do it. It's only you can decide whether it's worth it or not. And don't let, because I've had a lot of people telling me that it's stupid that I'm going. And I have a plan what I want to do with it. My plan is to actually stay there and learn the language because I want to live there. And even I get to hear from some people sometimes that, oh, I'm stupid and that it's unnecessary. And it's like, but why? Why is it necessary? Why is it stupid? I think as long as you understand what it is that you're doing and how big it is, and that you might put yourself in a lot of debt, and you might, because like we only get student funding for 5 years, so I only have 3 years left, and you might find yourself in a situation where you're like, well, now I can't do that other degree in Sweden. Like me, for example, I couldn't come back and then decide I want to take another degree because I wouldn't get enough funding for that. So like, as long as you're aware of those things, I think even if you just think I want to do it because I want to, then you should do it. So this video is like a lot longer than it was supposed to be, so I'm gonna actually cut it. I've only touched 2 questions, which is ridiculous because I've got so many more to deal with. But I'm gonna cut it and I'm gonna upload this, and then I'm gonna start working on the other one. So I will divide this into several parts because oh my god, 70 minutes. Yeah, for 17 minutes. That is what I do, okay? That is what Bella does. You're going to learn that. That is what Bella does. She goes everywhere with what she's saying, and she doesn't stick to one single subject, and she just cannot. So yeah, I will put the link to Go Nihon in the description for this video. I will put the link to the next part once I upload that as well in the description of this video. I will put the link to like I have a Twitter that's now dedicated solely solely to my English is so good, solely to my trip to Japan, and I have a Tumblr for the same reason, so I'm going to put the links to those as well in the description. So yeah, check them out or don't, who cares, whatever. And I will be back in a minute with the next part. Sorry for the length. Bye.